Hey, tonight we're not just telling a story. We're stepping through a doorway in time. A doorway that leads not to the glamorized Hollywood frontier of heroic gunfights and golden sunsets, but to the real one, the raw, unvarnished, often brutal American West of the 1870s. This is not a tale of adventure. This is a story of survival. And before this hour is done, you'll understand why, for all our modern toughness and technology, most of us wouldn't have lasted a single day. If stories like this connect with you, if you feel that pull to understand the real past beneath the myth, then please help this channel grow. A quick like, or better yet, a subscribe makes all the difference. And I'm genuinely curious, where are you listening from right now? Drop a comment with your city and the time there. It's always amazing to see our little global community of history listeners connect across continents and time zones. Now, let's begin properly. Wherever you are, get comfortable. Dim your lights. Maybe you hear a faint hum from a fan, or the quiet of a late night. Let that be your anchor here in the present, because where we're going, there is no anchor, only the vast, whispering, dangerous unknown. Congratulations, you've just time traveled. One moment you're in your world, the next you're lying on a coarse, prickly surface in utter darkness. The air is thick, cold, and smells profoundly different. This is the American frontier, the Wild West. The year is somewhere in the 1870s.
The good news? You are now a first-hand witness to one of the most mythologized, rugged chapters in human history. You will feel it, smell it, taste it. The bad news? Your statistical probability of survival has just taken a catastrophic nosedive. Don't open your eyes yet. Let your other senses paint the picture first. The first challenge isn't seen, it's smelled. Inhale. What do you expect? Maybe the clean, earthy scent of pine forests, the dry, sweet aroma of prairie grass? No. What fills your nostrils is a complex, oppressive bouquet of human existence without sanitation. It's the pungent, eye-watering tang of bodies that have gone months without a proper wash, a sour, greasy odor that clings to the air. It's the sharp ammonia bite of animal urine and the deeper, richer stench of manure, likely from animals sheltered close by. Underlying it all is a dank, foul hint of what you desperately hope is not raw sewage, but probably is, hanging heavy in the cold, still air. You see, in the real Wild West, bathing was not a daily or even weekly ritual. Water was life's most precious currency. Every drop had to be hauled, often from a distant creek or a deep well. Using a precious bucketful to clean your body, when that same water could mean the difference between a cooked meal or thirst, seemed like insanity. For most settlers, a thorough wash was a monthly luxury, and that's being generous. Diaries from the period tell of men and women going entire winters without undressing for a bath. The grime became a second skin, a gritty testament to survival. Now, open your eyes. The gray light of dawn filters not through glass, but through narrow cracks between rough-hewn logs or through the packed earth of a sod house wall. You're lying on a mattress. That word is too kind. It's a coarse, ticking cloth bag stuffed with straw or dried prairie grass. Move slightly, and you'll feel it rustle and prick. Look closer in the dim light, and you might see small, dark specks moving. Bedbugs, lice. They were universal roommates. You try to sit up. A deep, unanimous groan echoes through your body. Every muscle, your back, your shoulders, your thighs, screams in protest. This isn't the ache of a hard gym session. This is the deep, bone-level fatigue of perpetual, brutal labor. Life on the 1870s frontier was one unending physical ordeal. There was no concept of a weekend, no paid vacation, no ergonomic guidelines. From the moment the sun lightened the horizon to the moment it disappeared, you worked. Your body was not your own. It was the primary engine of your survival. What was your job?
Let's say you're a homesteader. Your day involved breaking the unyielding prairie sod with a cast-iron plow pulled by yourself or a weary ox. You'd swing an axe for hours, splitting logs for fuel or construction. You'd haul bucket after bucket of water from a stream half a mile away. Each task was repetitive, each motion designed to wear you down. If you were a miner, you'd descend into a pitch-black shaft with a flickering candle on your hat, the air thick with dust, swinging a pickaxe into unyielding rock for 12 hours straight. If you were a ranch hand, you'd spend 18 hours in the saddle, chasing stray cattle through thorny brush in blistering heat or driving cold rain. This was labor that broke people. Strong men in their 20s were left with permanently hunched backs, arthritic joints, and ruined hands by their 30s. The body was a tool, and on the frontier, tools were used until they shattered. Is it any surprise that the average life expectancy here hovered around a mere 35 years?
You swing your legs off the bed, your bare feet touching the floor. It's hard, packed dirt. A wave of cold shoots up through your soles. If it's winter, the temperature inside your cabin could easily be 20, even 30 degrees below freezing. You'd have let the fireplace embers die overnight to conserve every precious stick of fuel. There is no central heating, no insulated walls, no thermal underwear. The cold is a living thing, seeping into your bones, stealing your breath in visible plumes. If it's summer, the cabin transforms into a stifling oven by mid-morning. You'll sweat through your one set of clothes within an hour, the damp fabric chafing your skin raw. There was no escape from the elements. You endured them. Speaking of clothing, let go of any image of the stylish, clean outfits from Western films. A typical man owned perhaps 2 sets of clothes total, one for every day, one for best, which was just slightly less patched. Trousers were made from rough, stiff canvas or early abrasive denim. Shirts were coarse, unbleached cotton that felt like sandpaper against the skin. They were rarely washed, and when they were beaten on rocks by a stream, doing little for softness or smell. For women, it was a layer cake of discomfort. Regardless of the season, she'd wear a chemise, tightly laced corset, multiple petticoats, and a long, heavy dress made of wool or calico that would drag through the mud and dirt of daily life. Every piece was scratchy, restrictive, and hot. Laundry was a monumental day-long task done with harsh lye soap. Fashion was a distant fantasy. Practicality and durability were the only gods. Your stomach emits a loud, hollow growl. Breakfast time. Summon no visions of fluffy pancakes or sizzling bacon. Hope you like beans and hardtack and bad coffee, because this triumvirate of blandness might be your menu for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The frontier diet was a masterclass in monotony and nutritional deficiency. Calories were king, nutrition an afterthought. The staples were dry beans, cornmeal, salt pork, and hardtack, a rock-solid biscuit designed to survive an apocalypse, often requiring soaking in coffee or water to be edible. Fresh fruits and vegetables were rare seasonal treasures. Without refrigeration, meat was preserved by heavily salting it or smoking it into a leathery jerky. The result was a diet desperately lacking in vitamins. Scurvy, caused by vitamin C deficiency, was rampant. Imagine your gums turning spongy and bleeding, your teeth loosening and falling out, not from age, but from a simple lack of fresh food, a condition easily preventable with modern knowledge, but a crippling scourge here. Ah, the coffee. In movies, the cowboy always has a pot of strong, aromatic brew bubbling over the fire. The reality was a cruel parody. Frontier coffee was often made from low-grade beans, roasted unevenly and ground coarse. It was then boiled, not brewed, boiled for extended periods in a pot, sometimes with a crushed eggshell thrown in to help the ground settle, or a pinch of salt to cut the extreme bitterness. The result was a bitter, acidic, tar-like liquid. You drank it for the caffeine jolt to face the day, not for pleasure.
Before you venture outside, there's a crucial, life-saving ritual. You pick up your boots, sturdy, worn leather, and you bang them together, upside down, over the floor. Then you shake them vigorously. Finally, you peer inside, running a finger around the interior. You're checking for scorpions, black widow spiders, or snakes. Overnight, these creatures sought warmth and shelter. A startled scorpion or a coiled rattlesnake in your boot could deliver a venomous bite before you even knew it. Miles from any medical help, such a bite was often a death sentence, or at best would lead to a horrific, gangrenous wound. This simple paranoid act of shaking out your boots was a daily habit born from painful, sometimes fatal experience. You step outside. The view, for a moment, is utterly breathtaking. It stops you in your tracks. An endless expanse of prairie rolls toward distant purple-hazed mountains under a sky so vast it feels like a dome. The air, despite everything, is clean and sharp. The sheer scale is humbling. This is the postcard. Now comes the reality. This magnificent landscape is also profoundly unforgiving. You are excruciatingly exposed. The weather here is not a mild inconvenience. It's a lethal, unpredictable force. On the Great Plains, weather could change with shocking speed. A warm, clear morning could transform into a raging blizzard by afternoon, burying trails and freezing the unprepared to death in hours. In spring and summer, tornadoes could descend from nowhere, obliterating everything in their path. Dry lightning could spark prairie fires that raced faster than a horse, consuming miles of grassland and any homestead in their way. Flash floods could roar down dry arroyos, sweeping away people, animals, and wagons without warning. Droughts could stretch for years, withering crops, drying up water sources, and leading to slow starvation. There was no National Weather Service radio alert. Your forecast was the ache in an old settler's bones, or the behavior of birds, unreliable at best. Survival meant constant, wary observation of the sky. Perhaps seeking some semblance of community, you decide to walk to the nearest frontier town. Civilization must offer some buffer against this raw nature, right? In some ways, yes. In many others, it concentrates the danger into new, terrifying forms. As you approach, the town's haphazard nature is apparent. There was no city planning. Buildings, saloons, general stores, blacksmith shops, homes were thrown up wherever convenient, following no grid. The main street is just a wider dirt path, and the smell you woke up to returns, multiplied. Now it's layered with the overwhelming, ever-present stench of horse manure. Horses were the cars, trucks, and tractors of this world. They were everywhere, and their waste was everywhere. There were no street sweepers, no sanitation crews. In wet weather, the streets became a foul soup of mud, manure, and garbage. In dry times, every passing wagon or horse kicked up thick clouds of fine, choking dust that coated your lungs. Flies, clouds of them, buzzing around the waist, landing on food at open-air markets, crawling on the faces of children. It's here you understand viscerally why disease was the great reaper of the frontier. Germ theory was not widely understood or accepted in the 1870s. There was no proper sewage system. Outhouses often drained into shallow wells or nearby streams, the same streams used for drinking water. Contamination was constant and invisible. As a result, towns were petri dishes for epidemic diseases. Cholera could sweep through a community, killing a healthy person with violent dehydration in less than a day. Typhoid fever, spread by contaminated food and water, was a slow, burning death. Smallpox left survivors scarred and blind. Tuberculosis, the consumption, was a death sentence carried on a cough in crowded boarding houses. Diphtheria strangled children in their beds. An outbreak could easily wipe out half a town's population in a matter of weeks. Medicine was powerless to stop it. You walk down this dusty, treacherous main street. You pass the busiest social hub in most towns, the saloon. Forget everything Hollywood taught you. Forget the polished mahogany bar, the sparkling mirror, the cheerful piano player, the swinging doors. A real frontier saloon was often a crude, single-room shack. The bar was a long, rough-hewn plank balanced on barrels. The floor was sawdust or dirt to soak up spilled liquor, tobacco juice, and blood. The furniture was basic and battered. And the liquor? It was rarely fine, aged whiskey. What was served was often raw, high-proof alcohol, sometimes pure grain alcohol, watered down and mixed with various substances to mimic the taste and color of whiskey. Recipe additives included burnt sugar, tobacco juice, chewing tobacco, pepper, turpentine, and even gunpowder to give it a kick. The goal was maximum intoxication for minimum cost. Poisonings and blindness from bad rot gut were not uncommon. These establishments were not places for cheerful camaraderie. They were pressure cookers. Men, often young, single, far from home, working dangerous jobs, would drink this potent poison to numb their reality. Fights erupted not over matters of honor, but from drunken insults, disputes over card games, or simply the wrong glance. Violence was sudden, messy, and lethal. The romantic walk down at high noon duel was a later invention. Most killings happened in the dim, smoky confines of the saloon or in a dark alley behind it. You notice something else as you walk. Nearly every man you see carries a firearm, a pistol on his hip, a rifle in a saddle scabbard. But the reason might surprise you. While personal protection in a violent society was a factor, for most, a gun was first and foremost a tool, a vital piece of survival equipment. It was a hunting tool to put meat on the table when game was available. A deer or a flock of prairie chickens could mean the difference between sustenance and hunger. More importantly, it was a defense tool against wildlife. The frontier was not empty. It was filled with predators that saw humans and their livestock as food. Grizzly bears, wolves, mountain lions, and coyotes were real, constant threats, especially to those living on isolated homesteads or traveling between settlements. A farmer going to check his fields at dusk, or a mother hanging laundry while her children played nearby, was vulnerable. Going unarmed, especially outside town limits, was considered foolishly reckless. Here's the historical irony. The actual lawless Wild West had some of America's earliest gun control laws. In famous cattle towns like Dodge City, Kansas, and Abilene, and even in the mining boom town of Tombstone, Arizona, ordinances required visitors to surrender their firearms to the sheriff or a designated stable on entering town. The idea was to prevent the impulsive, drunken violence that plagued these places. The legendary gunfight at the OK Corral in Tombstone was, at its root, a violent enforcement of a local gun ordinance. The Clanton and McClary gang had refused to surrender their weapons as required by city law. The mythic quick-draw duel between two rivals in the middle of a deserted street is almost pure fiction. Real gunfights were ambushes, bar fights, or chaotic close-range struggles during robberies. They were brutal, ignoble, and over in seconds. Continuing your walk, you pass a small, grim-looking office with a hand-painted sign, Doctor and Surgeon. This is a place you pray you never have to enter. Medical care on the frontier would seem like medieval torture to modern eyes.
Many frontier doctors were not formally trained. Some were steam doctors or herbalists with dubious credentials. Others had learned through a brief apprenticeship. Their medical knowledge was often based on ancient, discredited theories like the four humors. Anesthesia, when available, was primitive. For minor procedures, you might get a dose of laudanum, tincture of opium, or a stiff drink of whiskey. For major surgeries like amputations, you might be given a leather strap to bite down on. The agony was indescribable. Sterilization was not understood.
Surgical instruments were wiped on a dirty apron between patients. Doctors operated in their street clothes. Germs were an invisible mystery. As a result, even a minor injury could become a death sentence. A simple cut from a farming tool, infected with bacteria, could lead to septicemia, blood poisoning, or gangrene. The standard treatment for a gangrenous limb was amputation, performed with a saw on a kitchen table, with a survival rate that was essentially a coin toss. Common treatments for various ailments were often worse than the disease. Bloodletting, draining blood from a vein to balance the humors, was still practiced, weakening already ill patients. Patients were dosed with toxic compounds of mercury, arsenic, and lead, which caused neurological damage, organ failure, and death. For women, childbirth was one of the most dangerous events of their lives. It usually happened at home, attended by a midwife or female relatives if you were lucky. Without prenatal care, complications like breech births or hemorrhages were often fatal. Maternal mortality rates were staggeringly high. Approximately 1 in 100 births ended in the mother's death. Many women faced each pregnancy, knowing it could be their last. By now, the sun is high. Your stomach complains again. You find a place to eat, often just a room in someone's house where they serve meals for a few cents. Lunch offers no culinary redemption. The food is, once again, beans and salt pork, perhaps with a piece of cornbread. The meat is tough, stringy, and often has a faint off taste because preservation methods were imperfect. Any vegetables are boiled into a flavorless gray mush. The concept of food safety does not exist. Food poisoning and dysentery, the trots, were regular debilitating features of life. As you eat, you can't help but overhear the conversations at nearby tables. The talk is anxious, hushed. Men speak of a recent Indian attack on a homestead to the north, of an outlaw gang robbing travelers on the road to the next territory, of a neighbor who set out alone 3 days ago and hasn't been seen since. This is the soundtrack of frontier anxiety. Let's address the most mythologized part, conflict with Native Americans. By the 1870s, many Native American nations had already been decimated by disease, broken treaties, and military campaigns. The relentless westward expansion of white settlers was systematically displacing them from their ancestral lands, destroying their food sources, most famously the near extermination of the buffalo, and threatening their way of life. While violent clashes did occur, many historians note that settlers and the U.S. military were far more often the aggressors in this long, grim conflict. Unprovoked attacks on villages were not uncommon. The infamous Sand Creek Massacre of 1864, where Colorado militia killed over 200 Cheyenne and Arapaho, mostly women and children, is a stark example. For a settler, the fear was real, fed by propaganda and isolated incidents. But the greater, more constant danger for most was not from native warriors, but from the harsh environment and their fellow settlers. Outlaws, however, were a genuine and persistent threat, especially in remote areas. Bank and train robberies, stagecoach holdups, and cattle rustling were real crimes. Why? Because law enforcement was laughably sparse. A county sheriff might be responsible for an area larger than some modern European countries. He might have 1 or 2 deputies, if any. He couldn't possibly patrol it all. In many places, the law was simply whatever the strongest or most organized group decided it was. This vacuum of official authority gave rise to vigilante justice. If a horse thief was caught or someone was accused of murder, a mob might quickly form. A quick kangaroo court trial would be held, and a sentence, usually hanging, would be carried out immediately. The concept of innocent until proven guilty Legal representation and appeals was alien in these moments of mob fury. Innocent men were certainly lynched. This wasn't justice. It was collective panic and vengeance disguised as order. After your unsettling meal, you decide to visit the general store to see about supplies. This is the Amazon.com of the frontier, the nexus of material life. Prepare for sticker shock. A simple can of peaches might cost the equivalent of $50 in today's money. A pair of sturdy boots could cost a month's wages. Why? The supply chain was a slow, treacherous, and expensive ordeal. Every nail, bolt of cloth, sack of flour, and tool had to be transported thousands of miles by wagon train or slow riverboat, then by wagon again over terrible roads. The cost of that transportation was baked into the price of everything. Most settlers lived a hand-to-mouth existence, spending virtually all they earned on absolute necessities. Luxury was a concept for storybooks. The store also highlights another profound hardship: isolation. On a shelf, you see a stack of newspapers. You pick one up. The date is 4 months old. The news is from another world, reporting on events in Washington or New York that are already ancient history. The mail, carried by stagecoach or occasional rider, was slow and unreliable. A letter from family back east could take 6 months to arrive, if it arrived at all. You might go years without any news from your parents, siblings, or the life you left behind. This psychological isolation was crushing. You were cut off, not just by distance, but by time. The world you knew was receding into a memory, replaced by this harsh, demanding new reality with no connection to your past. Diaries of frontier women in particular speak of soul-crushing loneliness, of going weeks without speaking to another adult besides their husband, of staring at the endless, empty prairie and feeling a despair so deep it had a name: prairie madness. This profound disconnection contributed to high rates of depression, alcoholism, and suicide. As you leave the store, you look to the west. The sky, which was clear an hour ago, is now a roiling wall of dark, purple-gray clouds. The wind picks up, carrying the electric smell of ozone. A storm is coming, and it's coming fast.
You begin the walk back to your cabin, a sense of urgency quickening your steps. Weather here isn't an inconvenience, it's an existential threat. Your home offers scant protection. If you're on the treeless plains, your house might be made of sod, blocks of densely rooted prairie grass cut from the earth. It's dark, damp, and leaks in heavy rain. If you're in a wooded area, it's a log cabin, with chinks between the logs stuffed with mud or clay that wash out in a downpour. In a town, it might be a simple wooden-framed building. None of these structures are equipped for extreme weather. Winter temperatures inside can still drop below freezing. Summer turns the interior into a stifling trap, especially in lofts where many people slept. The roof is your greatest vulnerability. You make it to your door just as the first heavy drops begin to fall. Within minutes, it's a deluge, and then you hear it, the distinct plink, plink, plink of water hitting your dirt floor. Then another, and another. Your roof is leaking, not in one place, but in several. You scramble for every available container, a tin cup, a cooking pot, a battered bucket. You place them strategically under the drips. The rhythmic sound of water hitting metal becomes the soundtrack of the storm. This water, once the storm passes, will become your drinking water. It's a blessing and a curse. Clean, fresh water was perpetually scarce. Many settlers had no choice but to drink from the same muddy creek where they watered their livestock and washed their clothes, a practice that guaranteed a cycle of waterborne illness. Capturing relatively clean rainwater was a minor victory in the daily war of survival. You sit on your one chair, listening to the rain drum on the roof and plink into your pots. The cabin grows dark and cold. This is the moment for reflection,
stripped of all romance. There were no heroes in black or white hats here. There were no sweeping musical scores to elevate a simple act to glory. There were just people, men, women, children, engaged in a grinding, exhausting, often terrifying daily struggle against incredible odds. They were hungry, cold, sick, lonely, and perpetually afraid. The fact that they persevered, that they built communities and futures from this harsh soil, is not a testament to violent triumph, but to the quiet, stubborn, extraordinary resilience of the human spirit. Night falls with a suddenness that is startling. One moment there's gray twilight, the next an absolute consuming darkness you have likely never experienced. There is no ambient light, no street lights, no glow from a distant city, no electronic devices, LEDs. If there's no moon, the darkness is so complete you cannot see your own hand in front of your face. You light a candle or a small oil lamp. The flame creates a tiny, fragile island of light in an ocean of black. You guard this flame carefully. Fire was the omnipresent terror of the frontier. A single spark from your fireplace, a tipped-over lantern, a carelessly discarded match could, and frequently did, lead to catastrophe. Homes, barns, and entire towns, built almost entirely of wood and dried prairie hay, could be reduced to smoldering ashes in under an hour. Volunteer fire departments were rare and poorly equipped. Many famous frontier towns, like Seattle and San Francisco, burned down multiple times. Finally, you crawl back into your crude bed. Your body is a map of aches. Your back from labor. Your stomach unsettled by the strange, poor food. Your mind weary from the day's constant, low-grade vigilance. Every sound outside, the creak of a branch, the cry of a night bird, is parsed for potential danger. Sleep is not a gentle surrender, it's an exhausted collapse. As you drift off, the wind rises again, howling around the corners of your cabin like a hungry animal. It is a sound that perfectly encapsulates your life here, a haunting reminder of how small, how fragile, how utterly vulnerable you are against the immense, indifferent, and untamed wilderness. Tomorrow, if you are lucky enough to wake up, will be the same struggle. Different details, perhaps, but the same essential contest. Your will against an environment that offers no quarter. Survival in the real Wild West was never guaranteed. It was not a right. It was a prize, earned day by grueling day, hour by exhausting hour, through a depth of hardship that our modern world of abundance and safety has deliberately and thankfully engineered away. This was the reality. This is the story Hollywood left untold. Not a legend of gunfighters, but an epic of survivors. And if this journey into the harsh truth of the past has resonated with you, if you appreciate history stripped of its glamour, then please let me know in the comments. Share this story with someone who might need a perspective shift, and subscribe for more deep dives into the real stories behind the myths. Because understanding where we've been, in all its gritty, uncomfortable truth, is the only way to truly appreciate where we are now. Good night.